Buying new business software can be a stressful experience. It's easy to get caught up in the hype of a trendy new app or to be convinced by a pushy salesperson that their solution is a must-have. All too often, business owners or leaders get left with tools that don't entirely meet their needs, create unexpected ongoing expenses, or are more cumbersome and time-consuming to fit into their processes than what was being done before. In this video, we're going to explore a simple 7-step process you can use anytime you're considering adopting a new tool or solution that can help you pick the best option that most aligns with your business needs. You need to be clear on the business outcome you're looking for. No new software or solution is going to be a silver bullet that fixes every business problem. Do you have new products or services you're trying to support? Do you have an end-of-life existing business system that you're trying to replace? Have you gone through mergers that require you to join together previously separate solutions? Do you have productivity bottlenecks? Are you finding it hard to hire and retain good team members because of problems with your tooling? All of these and many more are valid starting points, but you need to understand at a strategic level what the problem is you're trying to fix and what a solution in terms of outcomes would look like. What is ill-advised to do at this time is to apply hard and fast targets in terms of budget and time to your project. You might have some general expectations, but far more important is what level of value return can be delivered by the proposed best solution, rather than finding the solution that best fits within arbitrary constraints you've created. Too often, projects are designed to hit a budget or a timeline, but fail in the overall aims because those parameters were not established with any connection to the effort needed to hit broader goals. You need to know in specifics what your needs are. In most cases, as a business owner or manager, unless you're running a very small operation, you don't know everything you need to know to gather a full picture of your requirements. You need to think about who, in terms of what parts of your business and what levels of team members are involved in the different processes that your software will touch, and ensure their voices are heard as you gather requirements. Mary, who has been quietly sitting in the corner of your finance office for the last 20 years, processing your sales team's expenses, knows far more that is relevant when you're thinking about buying a new expenses tracking software than your CFO does. If your company culture is that it's important not what you know, but what your title is, then you probably already have a few failed software deployments under your belt. And if you want to do better going forward, you need to think about how to improve knowledge sharing and project communication. Dig into your requirements, understand why they are requirements, and ask questions. What will happen if this doesn't get done? Who relies on that information? Why does this have to be a Windows application if it's being used in the field? Where does the requirement that your data has to be stored on site come from? Some of these requirements will be functional, in that they are to do with how the software works and what it does, and some will be non-functional, to do with how your company works. Some will be mandatory, in that the solution cannot work without it. Some will be nice to have, in that this item isn't critical. Be open to different ways to gather information. You might need to design workshops, you might use an online survey, you might sit and observe someone's working process. These and many more are valid solutions, and what's right will depend on what you are trying to find out, how big your project is, and what your communication culture is within your organisation. For some projects, you might even want to reach out beyond your business. Perhaps you're looking to build out a solution that allows your vendors to share information with you better. In this case, you probably want some of your vendors involved. Once you've gone through your requirements gathering, you will have a lot of information. For some big projects, you might have notes from weeks or months of workshops. In some smaller projects, you might just have a few written responses or surveys. In all cases, what I do is to try to cluster my requirements in big categories and to add metadata around whether a requirement is a mandatory item or a nice add-on. I find an Excel spreadsheet is a good place to do this, as you can end up with pretty big tables including a lot of contextual notes, but any approach that captures all the information adequately is acceptable. If there's a need to weight different requirements within our discovery, I will assign scores to different items and specify whether an item is a pass or fail requirement or something where there's a degree of variability. For example, if there's a need for a new asset management system to be able to maintain change history, this will be a pass or fail requirement, as it will either have that feature or it won't. But if this requirement is to maintain a minimum of one past version of an item in a version history, a solution that can store more than one or unlimited might get a higher score depending on the importance and reasoning of that requirement. Once you have built out your matrix of requirements and information, you should sense check it with the key stakeholders that were involved in your requirements gathering. This will be a tool that you use from here out to find the best solution to fit your need in a consistent way. You might already know the major players for software in the space you're looking at, but being as broad as possible with your research of products will help you find the best solution. Those who are involved in your requirements gathering may be a good source for ideas of products to look at. They may have worked with different software or solutions vendors in past companies and might be able to recommend directions for your search. Obviously, Google is a good resource here if you're just thinking of general search, but you can be more specific at how you explore in your network too. Are there trade groups you're a member of that can provide information? Could you explore with connections or groups you're a member of on LinkedIn? At this stage, a good baseline is to be looking at least 10 to 15 different options. Depending on your scope and how many players there are in the market, you might end up with more or less. For some types of software, this can be straightforward, but for others, where there are lots of customization options at the time of implementation, this can be more tricky. For example, a solution like Salesforce can be expanded in lots of different ways, and there are vendors out there that will provide tailored options for particular industries that you could build on top of the vanilla Salesforce yourself, but would be incredibly costly. In this case, I find it helpful to research both the vanilla software option and the software vendor's customized package, as it provides an opportunity to understand what level of differentiation you are buying in terms of capability for the added cost. Similarly, there can be extensive differences in support offerings for the same reasons. Once you've got your list of products to research, you should approach researching them and scoring their offering against your criteria in a consistent way. Different vendors will have different processes when it comes to communicating with you about their software. Some will just answer your questions, some will give you a hard sell, and some will just invite you to the same demo they give to everyone before they'll even talk specifics. Remember that your matrix of requirements is a shield from being pushed into their one-size-fits-all sales funnel. You have a specific set of questions, and if they're interested in your business, you'll need to find out those answers. At this stage, you'll also gather general information on pricing, support options, the history of the business making the software, how it's updated, whether there's a public roadmap for new features, and associated items that you may need to know. Once you've done all that research and done it consistently, you're in a really strong position to shortlist. You have looked at a wide variety of solutions through the same lens, and you've created a clearly articulated set of understandings as to why one might be better for your particular needs than the other. Shortlisting is a very easy process if you put the right work into your research. For mandatory requirements that are pass or fail, you can exclude those options that don't pass. However, I will put some caveats on this. If all or the majority, particularly of your highly ranked options, fail the same requirement or similar group of requirements, it can be legitimate to go back and look at those requirements. There are simply some things that are kind of edge cases, and you don't want to push forth with selecting a worse product overall because it hits a very niche criteria. In some cases, there will be workarounds to achieve the goal, either by altering processes or by some custom development or putting in place a secondary solution. In nearly all cases, I wouldn't advocate for your software defining your processes, but with the wealth of information you have at this point in your process, you shouldn't plow forward with something that feels wrong without doing your due diligence. At this point, the goal is to gather 3 or 4 options that are your top ranked to take forward. Next, you want to deep dive into your top ranked options and find ways to use the specific knowledge of those who helped you gather requirements to sense check the capabilities your selected solutions might bring. Depending on your solution, your scale, and the scope of your project, how this goes might look a bit different. It might involve generic product demos by the vendor, more tailored proof of concept demos that show you certain customizations, or even the opportunity to get hands-on through trials or test drives. It's important to be targeted in how you use time here. If it's a big project, it probably doesn't make sense for everyone involved to see everything. And remember that even by satisfying all the key requirements, you won't entirely satisfy everyone. Some people will find change very hard, and some will struggle to understand that their pet nice-to-have ask didn't make it into the selected options. This is also your opportunity to start to build a relationship with the vendor. Don't stand for red flags here. If the sales process seems confused, that may be a warning. If they seem disinterested in your needs, will they be more interested once you've signed a contract? If the salesperson promised a lot but finds it hard to demo those key features to you, that's at least a reason to ask some questions. Here is where you'll worry more about pricing and support and ancillary issues. A really robust solution with no available support in the hours you'll be using it should be a concern. But equally, if the best solution is 50% more expensive than the others but delivers 100% more potential benefit, you've got a good reason to push the boundaries of your budget a little. After all this hard work, you will refine your scoring against your criteria and recommend a final selection. You should ensure clarity around timeframes, cost, support, and who will do the work of implementation. You should also do a final sense check that the recommendation provided addresses all the scope issues that were initially outlined. A process like this does not 100% guarantee that you'll never run into a problem with a new software adoption, but it is certainly way better at assuring success than just picking the tool that sends you the most marketing emails. Thanks for watching to the end of this video. As part of my business, Bright Ideas Agency, I do provide services supporting this process for many customers. And if you're interested, I've provided a link below where you can go to download this one-sheet overview of this suggested 7-step software selection process. Depending on what you want to achieve, enlisting an outside consultant to help with this type of process can be extremely beneficial. If you'd be interested in discussing with me what a project like this would look like for your business, then follow that same link below for contact information to set up a free initial assessment. Thanks again for watching. Leave some comments below if you have other best practices you think are important for everyone to know. I hope this has been of value to you, and until the next video, bye bye.